Hello and welcome to episode 1 of The Last Review. This is your host, Sergey Fenswick, not my real name, and I'm happy to take you on a tour of the latest trends of the punditry class. Remember, this is the last review. After this one is over, you needn't look anywhere else because it's the last one. Episode 1, Rising Up to the Best News Show. In the twilight of corporate-led mainstream media's dominance, cable news broadcasts gladly threw away their credibility in pursuit of ratings and their own hubris. Taking on a president made for great drama from November 2016 through January 2021, using former government and intelligence officials as guests or senior analysts, as well as playing three-card Monty with what bombshell scandal was the real one we had to worry about, led to a rapid decline in trustworthiness. Despite corporate backing, The Hill's Rising program rose to prominence as it became the antidote to the usual skewed and short-sighted coverage encountered with a balanced set of hosts, eventually helmed by liberal-minded Crystal Ball and conservative-conscious Sagar Enjeti, and a highly polished presentation you would usually see from a billion-dollar cable news outlet. Forthright conversations, well-researched segments, and an honest admittance of their biases seemed to be a winning formula as it led to millions of views and subscribers, appearances on the Joe Rogan Experience, and even a best-selling book. When Crystal and Sagar left The Hill and went the independent route in the middle of 2021 to start their own program, Breaking Points, it was a fair assumption that the Rising program would wither away and die. It was an even fairer assumption that even if the program survived, it would revert to a safe format and not risk losing cavalier co-hosts again. Yet, even with the controversial resignations, Kim Iverson, and terminations, Katie Helper, and defying all logic and expectations, the current iteration of Rising, with co-host Brianna Gray and Robby Soave, is leading the charge in authentic news coverage and reporting. Authenticity. This is a world where authenticity has become a buzzword to be dressed up, sold in self-help seminars and board meetings. So the fight to be truly authentic is often a losing one for the media. Even amongst more honest or earnest pundits, some will become prisoners of their audience and expectations, leaving them to beat the same drum for cheap likes and hits. Others need lines of access and communication open, so they'll take softer stances on key figures or sources. However, what audiences have seen from Rising's Brie and Robbie over the last 6 months in particular has been nothing short of remarkable. Yes, Brie and Robbie are currently the best source for news in the country and have even outshone independent outlets like Breaking Points in simply being genuine. A significant source of their burgeoning popularity and what appears to be genuine authenticity is their subscription to two political mindsets that have tremendous overlap: progressivism and libertarianism. Despite being diametrically opposed on dozens of issues, progressivism and libertarianism agree on the diagnosis of nearly every major problem in government, only disagreeing when it comes to remedies and prescriptions. In alignment with progressivism and libertarianism, Robbie and Brie both seem to recognize the landscape of federal government and its dysfunction, which speaks to the largest percentage of people or voters in the U.S., the independents. According to Gallup, 42% of voters are independent, dwarfing the 30% who are self-identified Republicans and 26% self-identified Democrats. Rising's current co-hosts speak to the independent spirit, but perhaps most importantly, they look to where they can agree. They look to where their viewpoints can converge, as evidenced here.
And that's exactly why you have to do labor organizing, because all of these CEOs sit there and will honestly tell you on their earning calls that they think that the wealth that they have accumulated on your backs is not from you and your contributed labor. And the only way that you can force them to pay you what you actually are owed is to organize your workplace and threaten to withhold their labor. And we'll see how much they can earn if you don't show up at work.
Fine for people doing that.
That's the only way, collective action. Because you see, there's no one who's fighting for you. That's the way it is.
Okay, that's fine. I don't object to any of that. And I also object to how a lot of wealthy corporate interests get their money by rigging the system against everyone else. They have more access to power and the writing and creating the structures that allow them to get that wealth. So I'm against all that.
Okay. All right.
All right. We're going to leave it there.
Leave it there.
Before we peel any more layers of this onion.
I can't.
In moments like this, which are becoming more and more frequent over the last couple of months, it's clear that they're not trying to, quote, win, unquote. They are not trying to score points for their side. They are simply trying to come to an understanding. They want to agree because they know it will lead to a more productive part of the conversation and perhaps a true solution. That is true authenticity. Not authenticity the commodity, not the authenticity that's packaged as a winning strategy at professional development meetings and conferences. Episode after episode, they take on the issues and news items of the day from a place of compassion and honesty. Brie's compassion often has her taking on topics and presenting why we or the government should do something. When the opening arises, she advocates for a course of action rather than tear things down or tear others down. She advocates from a place of heartfelt compassion, and even if one disagrees, it's difficult to become emotional about it. She doesn't give interviewees or opponents that chance. Why? Because she doesn't play dirty. She sticks to the parameters of the issue or debate, acting as a positive force for reason. Her generosity and positivity do not mean Brie is a pushover, though. She won't let people sneak in irrelevant points or the classic tactic, a Trojan horse style of argument of hiding false notions inside or right before a thesis is presented. Take a look at this video where she stops a former Biden aide from trying to squeeze in slightly abstract yet false premises that are hard to argue in the heat of the moment. But here she does.
But Democrats did make a really big deal of the fact that it was really negligent for Donald Trump to lose track of these documents in the first place. Sure. That compounded with the fact that there is to Joe Rogan's point, this is a bad story, the timing of it, the idea that it might have been held from before midterms. What do you make of this argument that, in fact, it is reflective of his own campaign, his own party turning its back on Biden and trying to dissuade him from launching a re-election campaign?
Again, I don't know if it's ever been reported that the former president takes the law very seriously, but when Biden ran for president, when he was elected, he was determined to set a higher standard. He's always lived by that. His entire career, he's a man of integrity. Nobody has ever questioned, actually, his integrity or what's in his heart. Well, it is irresponsible, and he's going to have to eat those words to have classified information. But your script said it best. Found. He didn't know they was there.
Okay, Michael, I think a lot of people would say there's a question about his integrity in a lot of different ways.
Where?
There are people who are very chagrined about some of the statements that he made about segregation in the 70s. There are people who don't love that he eulogized segregationist Strom Thurmond. There are people who point to his hypocrisy about the busing issues in the 1970s. There are people who are frustrated that there are things that he promised on the campaign trail that have not come to fruition that he could have done by executive order, like canceling student debt.
Policy disagreements are totally fair.
And there were, I gotta say, a series of Me Too allegations made at the beginning of the 2019 season that his own VP, Vice President Kamala Harris, said that she believed those 8 women at the time. So I don't mean to bring all of that into this particular issue, but the idea that Joe Biden is very truthy is something I think that is a propaganda of sorts from the Biden family. On the other side, there are a lot of people who have literally coined the term Lion Biden.
The ability and willingness to respectfully stop someone in their tracks, refute the point, and then let them finish with what point actually matters is absolutely a rarity. This truly sets the show apart. Brie doesn't partake in a polite give and take because the segments are not about winning. They're about the truth. If a lie takes center stage, she's going to put a spotlight on it and not ignore it. Brie becomes the viewer. Each invalid or fallacy-filled point made to her registers with her, and she is sure to address it before moving on. Even if her ideals are politically progressive, we do not get the blatant play on identity as someone on the political left. She's not wearing progressivism like a badge. Her points on student loan debt, for example, aren't spent bashing critics on the right or starting sentences with, as a progressive. Instead, she's going to be precise with her research and delivery of facts on whom and how student loan debt affects. Her counterbalance is Robby. He seems a little hesitant at times and has been prone to get into an argument like it was a Twitter thread full of hot takes. But the newcomer to video broadcast news has shown remarkable composure and a measured tact when confronted with ideas that conflict with his views, as well as news items that range from the absurd to depressing. So he's growing into his role, often utilizing the wisdom to listen and then artfully summarize or counter. For example, at the Congress hearings over the Twitter files, Brie brought up several facts concerning conservative abuses of Twitter and oversight by Twitter files reporters. Robby heard her out, made sure to reiterate what she was saying was true, and then brought up his own area of focus, that while flawed, Twitter files still contain primary sources and documents, and that's valuable. And he also pointed out that the abuses are power-driven, not party-driven, particularly by the FBI and intelligence agencies. It made for a satisfying discussion that truly balanced all of the facts, sharpened focus, and didn't ramp up emotion. He also brings a journalistic approach to stories. He's willing to research and investigate on his own to break or further stories. Yet, he's also willing to admit when he hasn't done his research at all. His more recent work on the Facebook files, not the Twitter files, the Facebook files, was something you don't see happening that often by an anchor. This was a news anchor taking initiative and writing a story instead of reading or regurgitating it. That's not to say that it's all straight-laced reporting. They keep the audience in mind, and they're willing to have fun. One need only look at their coverage of the national hero Martin Luther King Jr.'s monument in Boston that evolved into a classic Rising clip to know that these co-hosts are human and also clever.
A new monument dedicated to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King has become a source of mockery and criticism online after images showing some of the art's rather unflattering angles emerged. Named the Embrace, the Boston statue is intended to represent the intertwined arms of the late Reverend and his wife. A cousin to the late Coretta Scott King told CNN the statue, quote, looks like a penis, excuse me, and is insulting to the black community.
It's so bad. It's horrifyingly bad. Okay, so there is one the correct angle, and if you look at it from the correct angle, I still don't like it. I think it's not great art, but it looks not totally offensive. That angle is bad. Every other angle, it's kind of stunning how many inappropriate things it looks like a sex act being committed in some way.
Somehow from every angle. Look, I gotta say, there's almost a new level of artistry that has emerged. I have a newfound respect. The longer we talk about this, the longer the statue discourse goes on. I'm increasingly respecting the artist's ability to toe the line between abstraction and realism such that it can be all things to all people as long as they are sexual in nature.
Like what, I don't know if you watched Glass Onion, what he says about the Mona Lisa, how her smile looks different every time you behold her. In that vein, every time you look at this piece of art, it is a new, profane, pornographic image jumping out into your eyeballs.
I mean, look, another part of the criticism was that this was supposed to be, a kind of commemoration of Coretta Scott King's role in the movement, which is often for relatable reasons, but like downplayed with respect to her husband, and the fact that they chose to kind of do a disembodied part of her arm to commemorate her when she doesn't get any kind of other statuary, generally speaking, was disrespectful. I mean, I think all of those are fine arguments.
Couldn't it just be a sculpture mimicking the image is beautiful. It's a nice image of them hugging. Add their freaking heads on the statue.
They remained respectful, but knew that the sadly and easily misinterpreted monument would be the butt of jokes, a modern-day Rorschach test for dirty imagery. Also, their banter about Robbie's age and even television they watch is a welcome change from what we usually see. Be it a humorous line about a story or just utilizing their friendly rapport, the two hosts make the show a fun experience. If there's a weakness to the program, it could be their forays into culture wars. Using what, say, Joe Rogan said last week on his podcast in order to spark a debate on the show between the two hosts often leads to a more disjointed dialogue. Both Brie and Robbie are guilty of trying to sneak in an extra point of something that maybe had been bothering them before they even started shooting beforehand. When that extra and sometimes unrelated point comes in, the opposing host rarely wants to let that go. While their integrity is admirable in these moments, being a culture warrior is, frankly, beneath them. It may be best to leave that stuff to the YouTubers or podcasters because Rising is representing something so much more these days. With mainstream broadcast news, the audience knows they are being antagonized into watching a little bit longer. With other independent news outlets, and this unfortunately includes Breaking Points as of late, the audience can't help but feel they are being sold something. With Rising, however, the audience is receiving a well-rounded view of the news based not only on the diverse views of the hosts, but the honest, good faith, and enjoyable discussion they bring to explore these news items. They may actually be taking news to the next level. They may be rising to that next level. Thank you.